And I want to talk about my 5.5 favorite contact center or call center metrics, right? These are the 5.5 kind of, you'll see why it's a half, right? But these are the metrics that I'm looking at every day for every single program that we are running. And these are the things that we have benchmarked. We know we have goals for, and if we're not hitting them, some of these metrics we're able to drill down deeper. Some of them we kind of just take at face value. I wanted to give you metrics here, and why I'm saying 5.5 metrics that everybody can gauge, right? Can judge, right? These are not like crazy, some made up things that are going to take a ton of math to do, right? These should be some core contact center metrics that everybody can have or should have in their contact center. If not, then call me. We got to talk because we got to get you a better platform. But let's start to get and jump right into this. So the first thing, and I believe the most important metric when it comes to customer support and really kind of is I don't want to say the end all be all, but it's kind of this overarching number that really starts you on your path to what is going right or what is going wrong is service level. And I don't think that that's a mind-blowing statement really anywhere, but for me, service level really starts to tell the story of where we are with staffing, with efficiency, with our handle time. Right? I can gauge so many things now just knowing where service level is, right, in relationship to where we have been with it or what day of the week it is, right? So let's start to say some benchmark things that I know always gets, a conversation started. I don't want to say an argument, right, because I don't think it's that aggressive, but I know a lot of you guys disagree with this, and I'm fine with it. But for me, for our benchmark of kind of a really good service model, that we are using an 80-30. And I think a lot of people don't, but overall, I think for most people, they would say that is pretty much the benchmark service. 80% of the calls, right, answered within 30 seconds or less, right? That's what we're really trying to do. And I would say most of my RFPs we're held to that standard as long as staffing and everything is kind of at Hoyle, right? Again, if we're looking for more of a white glove service, if we're looking for something that is, we're answering within, 2 to 3 rings, right? And some people still say that, right? Looking for a 90-10. We have clients that hold us to a 90-10, right? In 80-30, you need less staff than for 90-10. Basically, for 90-10, you have to have almost availability at all times to make sure you're hitting that 90% service level, right? 80-30 a lot of the time, but it's not all the time. One of the things, and I know some of you who've never heard me before, this could be something cool. Those of you who have listened to me before know I've talked about this, a couple times before, but we have used analytics a lot, right, to talk about what service level customer bases will really deal with, right? So again, we have a lot of customers say, Tom, I cannot afford the staffing of 30 reps to hit an 80% service level, right? I can only afford 20 reps or 18 reps. So what do? We say, okay, let's pull some analytic data and start taking calls and find out at what time period do customers start to lose positive sentiment, right? When does that change to negative sentiment, right? And a lot of times, for most customer bases, we're finding that a little over a minute and a half, no one has a problem with it. When you start to get to the 2 minutes to the 3 minutes, we see a little degradation in sentiment, depending on what type of program and the customer base. Then anything after that, we do see a little bit of a negative pull. But so I can say to somebody, hey, we don't need an 80-30. Maybe we need a 70-120, right? 70% of the calls answered within 2 minutes or less, right? And we can staff that down. You still have positive sentiment. Your customer base is still going to be okay, and you're spending less money there. So there's a lot of things that you can do with service level, but it has a huge impact, again, I think, on the customer experience, because again, the first thing that they're dealing, like the porch of your call center, right, is your service level, right? Because that's the first thing that somebody does. How long are they waiting, right? And if you can answer the phone quickly, then we can move to other metrics, but at least you kind of check the box on that first one. All right, so that's service level. All right, my second favorite metric, and I've been talking about this a lot this week on LinkedIn, is average handle time, right? I will take average handle time over average talk time all day, every day, right? I think average talk time is a metric that we can look at if our handle time is out of whack, right? But for me, we benchmark every program with our average handle time, right? So average handle time, meaning basically the talk time, any hold time, any after call work time. There's some other things that could play into that, right? But basically, those are kind of the meat and potatoes, right? The cradle to grave, from thank you for calling to the end of the work that you're doing in your wrap time or your after call work. So we benchmark that number. If we see reps that are outside of that number, then I'm going to start to look at talk time, right? What was their talk time, right? Their talk time was fine. All right, well, then what's going on with their after call work? Was that out of whack, right? Were they taking 3 minutes when everybody else is taking 30 seconds, right? So again, for me, handle time tells me instantly a lot of things. It correlates obviously directly to service level, and it's something that we make sure that we benchmark for every single program. All the agents know, and again, we're not like holding a stick and beating people up if they're not at that every single time. But again, this is something that we're benchmarking from. What were we last week? What are we today? What were we for the life of the program? Are we trending downward, right? Or are we trending up? Why are we trending up, right? It tells you so many things, right? That is the first kind of, it's like the thermometer, right? For me, right? So if something's going really good or really wrong, right? That thermometer say, oh, we have a fever, right? Maybe we need to go check out what's going on, right? That's kind of my analogy for average handle time. Okay, my third favorite metric, and one that smaller contact centers need to start to take up. Bigger call centers love this metric too, is occupancy, right? And it's basically the amount of time that an associate or a group of associates are in a working state, the percentage of time, not the amount of time, but basically the percentage of time that they're in a working state, right? So this metric tells us how efficient we are, number one, and it also tells us kind of the health of the agent, right? The burnout rate of the agent, right? We do not want agents taking back to back calls with no break. You're going to burn your associates out, and it's not going to be a very fun experience. The day's going to go fast, but there's only so much that your brain can take, right, without having a break, right? I mean, even in this podcast, every once in a while, like I'll take a break and maybe take a breath and okay, right? Like even that's 2 or 3 seconds that I need to kind of even just recalculate myself. So I think that it's a really important metric, right? Again, we benchmark that at 45 minutes out of the hour. We want our reps in a kind of a working state, and basically we're calling that like just not available, right? So they're everywhere from talking on the call to doing some after call work, right? So when you're available, those kind of things, that's the math that we're going to kind of give you a breath on. Sometimes, depending on the client, we will include after call work. If we really don't have that much work, we'll include that kind of in our occupancy. But for the most part, that probably shouldn't have said that. We really don't do that. And as an industry, it's really not done. So basically just working state, 45 minutes out of the hour, 75%, right? That is your occupancy rate that I think is benchmark, that I think is fair for companies, and I think it's fair for associates as well. All right, my fourth favorite metric that I am looking at every single day is after call work. Now, for most of our clients, most of our programs, we have a set amount of after call work. I know some people disagree with that and just want to, I guess, coach behaviors. I just think it turns into too much of an issue, going back and forth with supervisors and reps, because you'll always have a couple reps that are going to try to take advantage of the after call work if they're allowed as much after call as they want. Now, for some things that you're doing, you need a ton of after call work, right? If the policies and procedures say that you have to memo the heck out of this and you have to, fill out paperwork and make sure that, everything is in order, you could have 10 minutes of after call work per call, right? Now we'd like to try to automate that to make it quicker, but it happens, right? It can happen, right? But for a lot of programs, there's really nothing to do after the call. We still give 25 to 30 seconds of after call work no matter what, right? So I just did a TikTok today where somebody responded, hey, my company only gives 3 to 5 seconds of after call work, and that's not enough. My answer to that is it could be enough, right? If you have a lot of availability, right? If your occupancy level is a little bit lower, if your service levels are really high, right? So meaning there's not a lot of calls in queue. Every time that you go into after call work and then you go back available, you're still waiting, right? So if that kind of total time, and we should probably almost call it, and maybe I'm embedding a new metric, but total time between calls, right? Which includes after call work and available time. I like that metric. I'm gonna look that up, right, and see if we can maybe do something, because I think you can have 3 to 5 seconds if you're giving your reps enough time when they're available. I hope that kind of makes sense. But after call work for me, we try to set it. We try to make sure that our reps do get a break after every call, but we don't want them to take advantage of it either, right? Most of them do not, but everybody knows. And don't tell me you don't have anybody in your call center that wouldn't do that, because I think we all do. All right. The fifth metric, and again, these are more not core metrics, but this is kind of, I'm looking at health, especially this metric. If we have a higher handle time, one of the things that can confuse people is hold time, right? So there's 2 ways that this kind of confuses people. Number one is if you do put somebody on hold, right? Obviously that's tracked, or it should be tracked in your phone system. But a lot of times reps don't put agents on hold, they put them on mute, right? And that's what kind of analytics comes in for us, right? Because we can kind of track that from we call it, it's silence, right? So the amount of silent time on a phone. So again, this is something that we can really drill down to. We see a higher handle time. We're going to look at talk time. We're going to look at the after call work. And then I'm going to go and look at silence time. This is why I kind of call it maybe a half, right? Because I know a lot of you don't have that. But looking at hold time, and if your hold time is really low, right? And you don't understand why, why your handle time might be so big, and you see your after call work, a lot of times they're muting, right? And you got to make sure that you're checking on that, because mute time a lot of times is not tracked in a telephony platform. But that's something that I think is important too, to kind of differentiate the two and to kind of see if there's any issues, because that can really tell if a rep is struggling, right? If they don't know how to answer certain questions, if they need a little bit more training, that's important. An important kind of check mark metric as well. And then the last metric, and again, this was initially why I was going to say half, but I think that hold and that mute might be the half too, is sentiment scores, right? You guys that have listened to me, and we're probably going to end the podcast now because I've said it so many times, you've already heard it, but I think NPS and CSAT are overrated. I think sentiment scores from a customer standpoint and from an agent standpoint is extremely underrated, right? So it's amazing for me, and I love seeing when we do analytics and we benchmark a client, right? So let's say we get a brand new client and we have 25 reps, and we start to take customer or client customer sentiment scoring, and let's say they're at 47% positive, right? Pretty low, right? We're trying to get that thing up. For us, most of the time, if we can get that to 70%, 65 to 70%, that's in a really good place. And some are going higher, but that's about where we're trying to get. I think analytics, we're all trying to find out benchmarks for certain things too. But the cool thing is that we develop a plan instead of just having an NPS or CSAT that's low, and you end up like retraining agents and kind of, I think, going through a rigmarole of things that may not really help that CSAT or that NPS. With sentiment scores, what we can do is look at the entire journey, right? Because you're looking now at the trending keywords, right? Website issues, delivery issues, logistics problems, price issues, like all these things come into play, so that you can actually develop a plan that is holistic to the contact center. And I'm sure the contact center has a lot to do with it. Maybe service level, wait time too high, those types of things. And then move that 47 or 45% up to that 60%, not just on contact center, but looking at everything in that customer journey, which is why I really love that metric, and really wish more people would start to get into that world instead of just blanket CSAT, DSAT, NPS, but understanding more of the holistic approach, looking at more of the calls, not just the happy people, the irritated people that took the survey or did the email.